Welcome back to another video in the top-down RPG template tutorial series. In the previous video, we learned about applying status effects using status effect areas. Today, we will dive into creating different types of skills. Let's get started. To begin, we need to create our own skills data table using the structure provided in the documents. We should also open up the CDT Skills Composite data table and replace the existing data table with ours. Depending on the skill's type, we need to create another data table to further modify it. You can refer to the documentation for more information about these variables. If the skill provides any status effects, we should add them to our skill data table. We can also add any information that doesn't change based on any variable in this list. However, these are only for the UI, and we will set the logic in Blueprint later. Finally, we should add other skill IDs that can affect this skill to the list. For our first skill, let's create an aura that damages enemies around us. We will set it to be an aura with a range, magical damage, and fire damage. We will also add the static variables to the skill data table. These variables are just for the tooltip that appears when the mouse is hovered over the skill button. Since this is an aura skill, we also need to add the same ID to the aura data table. To create the aura data table, we can use the structure provided in the documentation. Then, we should find the CDT Auras composite data table and replace the default data table with ours. We can copy the skill ID and paste it into the Aura's data table to avoid typos. We also need to set the effect for the Aura and a socket to play this effect on. Finally, we need to create a blueprint for our Aura skill. To do this, we can use the Aura Base Blueprint as a parent class for our Aura skill. Then, we can go back to our data table and set the blueprint variable. We should also add this skill to the skill tree we are using for our characters. After that, we can open up the skill tree widget and set the skill ID on the skill button. Let's see what we've accomplished so far by testing our skill. While we can see the static variables on the tooltip, there's not much information about the skill. and it's not dealing any damage. But that's only because we haven't modified the skill blueprint we created. To address this, we need to override the Get Skill Details function and delete the parent node. This function is crucial for every skill, as it enables us to create dynamic variables. The first output is a list of text that appears on the tooltip for the current and next levels of the skill. From here, we can set status effect bonuses for the target, along with their descriptions and duration. Interval determines how frequently the damage over time effect will trigger. For aura skills, we can use this variable to execute certain events that we'll explore further in a moment. Since we want our aura to deal damage every second, we'll set it to 1. Refer to the documentation to learn more about these variables. We'll also set the radius of the aura to 300. If this skill is magical, damage will come from the min and max skill damage. We'll make both of these dynamic. Finally, set the bonuses for the attacker and target characters that will be applied solely to the damage calculation for this skill. On the input side, we have the level of the skill, as well as a list of other skills and their levels that can affect any variable of this skill. This list is pulled from the skills data table. To add information for our aura, we'll set the damage to be the same as the skill level. We'll then connect it to the min and max skill damage. Next, we'll need to write the logic for dealing damage. For aura skills, we can override the on-interval event, which runs based on the interval variable as long as the aura is active. We'll simply call the deal damage function and pass in the enemy characters list. Finally, we'll press play and test the skill again. This time, we should be able to see the dynamic variables displayed on the tooltip, and the aura should be dealing 1 damage every second, as expected. Next, let's create another aura skill that gives a life steal buff. First, we need to create the buff in the status effect data table. Then we can add the aura skill to the skills data table and set its buff ID. After that, we create the blueprint for the aura skill and add it to the aura data table. We should also remember to add it to the skill tree data table and the widget. For this tutorial, we will make the aura skill locked until the other aura skill is learned. To do this, we can copy the ID of the other aura skill and paste it into the required skill ID list of this new aura skill. When we go back to the skill tree and compile, we should see an arrow pointing from the other aura skill to this new aura skill. Let's also make it receive bonuses from the other aura. We can add the skill ID to the input list and write a description of the bonus it provides. Now we can open up the blueprint for the new aura skill and override the Get Skill Details function. We can use the Receive Bonus Skills input variable to get the level of the skill that is giving the bonus to this skill. We will make it so that this new aura skill receives a 1% lifesteal bonus from the other aura skill. We can also make the radius of the aura skill dynamic based on its level. These variables will appear in the tooltip for the skill, so we can connect them to the corresponding variables for the logic. We need to add a lifesteal bonus for the status effect, and write a description that will show up when the mouse is over it. That's all we need to do for this aura skill. We can now test it and check if it is working as intended. The tooltip should display the correct information, and the range of the aura should increase by 50 for each level. If we level up the other aura skill, we can get more lifesteal from this aura skill. Next, let's create a passive ability that grants cold resistance. Add it to the skills data table and attach the cold resist buff to it. When creating a passive skill, use the passive skills base blueprint as a parent. Make sure to add it to the skill tree data table and the skill tree widget as well. Override the Get Skill Details function and provide the necessary information. This skill will grant plus 1% cold resist per level. Add the bonus and its corresponding description for the status effect. Next, create a passive skill data table using the structure outlined in the documentation. Modify the CDT Passive Skills Composite Data Table to include our new data table. Add the skill ID to the Passive Skills data table. We can choose when we want to receive the status effect, but for this one, we will keep it always. Finally, set the blueprint variable. Now let's press play and test it. We should receive the buff as soon as we level up the passive skill, granting us cold resistance. Let's move on to creating some active skills. Active skills come in different types based on their target, and we will cover them all. First, we need to create a data table specifically for active skills. Once created, we need to modify the CDT Active Skills Composite Data Table to include our new data table. The first type of active skill we will create is an area of effect skill that damages enemies around us when casted. These types of skills are called no-target active skills because they are executed as soon as the hotkey is pressed, without the need to target any specific character. To create this skill, we will use the parent blueprint class provided in the documentation. After creating the blueprint, add it to the skills data table. We will make this skill have a range. Deal magical and cold damage. Write the static variables for the user interface. Then, copy the skill ID to the active skills data table. Make sure the type is no target and is cast is checked since this is a magical damage skill and we want our character to play a casting animation when the skill is used. From here, you can also set a specific casting animation for this skill. Add the skill to the skill tree data table and the widget. Override the function and set more information for the skill. We will make the radius dynamic by multiplying the level by 20 and the damage by 10. Write the information for the tooltip as well. When we test the skill, we notice that we are not dealing any damage. This is because there is another event we need to override for these types of skills, the On Skills Used event. Without it, the skill does nothing. Override the event and call Deal Damage. We can get enemy characters in the range of the skill and pass them to the Deal Damage event. We will use the location of the caster character and the radius we set previously. Refer to the documentation to learn about all the useful events and functions you can call from the skill blueprint. After testing it again, we can see that the information on the tooltip looks correct, and we can now deal damage when we use the skill. Next, we will create an active skill that can bypass the target's defense. We will use the free target active skill base as the parent class, which allows us to target anywhere when using the skill. You can also assign these types of skills to the right-click button for convenience. To add the skill, we need to create a new entry in the skills data table and set the required variables. Then, copy the skill ID and add it to the active skills data table. Set the skill type to free target and add it to the skill tree data table and skill tree widget. After that, override the function for the skill. The logic for this skill is simple. We will make sure the target's defense is reduced by an amount equal to the level of this skill when using it. Before testing, let's increase the defense of the enemy and set our attack power to 100 so that we can clearly see the change. With our normal attack, we will deal only 1 damage, but with level 5 Pierce skill, we will deal 5 damage. And with level 20, we will deal 20 damage. Next, let's create an active skill that requires an enemy target to be casted. We'll use enemy target active skill base as the parent class and make it give a debuff to the targeted enemy character. Don't forget to set the debuff ID here. Also, add the same ID to the active skills data table and make sure the type is enemy target. Since this is not an attacking skill, we'll make sure it's a cast skill. Add the skill to the skill tree data table and widget, and override the function. We'll give this skill a bit of range so that it can be cast from a distance. We'll also make sure it reduces the targeted character's defense by -2% per level. Since this skill gives a debuff, we can also set its description. We'll make sure the debuff lasts for 10 times the skill level. Unlike other active skills that deal damage to the target, this one just gives a debuff. Therefore, we need to override the on-skill-used event and apply the debuff to the target character. Once done, press play and test. You should see the debuff on the enemy character after using the skill. Next, we'll create an active skill that requires an ally target. We'll use Ally Target Active Skill Base as the parent class, and make this skill increase our life points. Since this skill doesn't deal damage, we can leave everything as is. Add the same skill ID to the active skill data table and set the type to Ally Target. Don't forget to add the skill to the skill tree data table and the widget. Override the function and provide the details. We'll add some range so we can use it from a distance. This skill will heal 5 times the skill level. Remember that if we don't override the on-skill used event for ally target skills, nothing will happen. So, let's override that event and heal the targeted character. As we said in the skill description, we'll heal 5 times the level of this skill. Press play and test the heal skill. You should be able to heal yourself 5 points per skill level. These types of skills also work on other players. Lastly, let's create an area skill that incorporates the status effect areas we covered in the previous video. We'll use Area Target Active Skill Base as the parent class. This skill will have a range, be magical, and deal fire damage. Rather than applying a status effect directly, we'll spawn a status effect area in the blueprint. Add the same skill to the active skill data table and ensure that the type is area target. Check is cast, and add a decal for the area effect. This effect will be displayed when the skill is selected. Add the skill to the skill tree data table and the widget. Now let's override the Get Skill Details function and start providing some information. We can set the minimum and maximum skill damage here, so we can access it later when we spawn the status effect area. Also, let's make the radius dynamic. It will be 10 times the skill level. Remember that we need to override the on-skill-used event for area target skills, otherwise nothing will happen when we use the skill. We will spawn the sphere status effect area at the targeted location. Providing the radius and debuff ID. We can get the caster character and cast it to the enemy character base class to determine if the status effect is from an enemy character or not. You can add bonuses here, but in this case, we will leave it empty. Write a description for the burn debuff and access the min-max damage by calling Get Skill Damage. This will give us the damage we provided earlier. Make sure to plug it into dot damage as well. We'll leave the interval at 1 as we want to deal damage every second. Provide the caster character as the source owner and set the duration for the status effect area. Press play and test. You'll notice that the skill area is small at level 5 and much larger at level 20. Enemy characters will take damage every second for 5 seconds as we designed. Thanks for watching.